Yeah, I mean, the problem is that there really are some very fundamental questions to be raised about what happened on in, on 7/7, and they range across a whole host of things on a simple basic level of an intelligence failure, which I guess would be the basic focus of an inquiry, which is why we failed to anticipate this attack. Surely, for a government that is interested in security, the first thing you'd want to do is to understand why we failed. And then you can introduce legislation, or then you can think about measures of improving our intelligence system and so on and so forth. But to just rush through with this draconian anti-terrorist legislation really seems to me to be disingenuous. And looking at the evidence that has come out in the public record about the kind of advanced warning that was available, it does suggest that we did have a fairly precise indication of what was going to happen, and that does raise questions about why we did fail to act. A number of reports, in the public record, mainstream sources say that Israeli intelligence, Saudi intelligence, and French intelligence, at the very least, all gave warnings of an imminent attack on London. A number of them were specific. The Saudis said that there was going to be an attack on the London Underground. They even indicated a date that it would be in July. Now, why was that not acted on? No questions have been asked. And surely an inquiry would look into what was done with this information. There's other bits of information that indicate that even the bombers themselves, the alleged bombers, were being monitored prior to London bombings. According to the official kind of narrative, we've been told that they didn't know anything about them at all, and so on and so forth. Then the other day, there was an article in the Mirror, the London Mirror, which basically said that for all four of the bombers, we know that at least one of them was apparently being monitored, but then was not considered a threat according to security services. But now we know that all four of them, according to a defense official anonymously talking to the Mirror, were monitored prior to the attacks for about a year or so. But then, according to this story, were not considered a threat, and then say they didn't continue the surveillance. But again, you see the shifting of the story from one person being monitored, but no one else monitored. Then, well, actually, four were monitored. Again, it has parallels to precisely what happened after 9/11, where we had shifting stories about the hijackers, shifting stories about what happened in regard to the planes. First, officials said that no planes were scrambled to intercept these jets flying around in the skies on 9/11 until after the Pentagon was hit. Then officials said that no, actually we did scramble planes. Then they tried to construct it. No, I tried to release a timeline. This very similar pattern is happening here. And it really makes clear that at every step of the way, somebody's lying. First, you're lying about one thing, then you're omitting something, you're lying about another. And there was an interesting statement from the French Interior Minister a few weeks after 7/7 about the surveillance of the alleged bombers. He said that after a briefing that had been given by the Home Secretary, Charles Clarke, to all the EU ministers, he came out of this briefing and he gave a public statement and he said, well, it seems as if that we had been monitoring this group for a long time, and essentially we had arrested them and released them for intelligence interests because we wanted to continue surveillance. And after he said this, the Home Secretary basically came out and said, absolute bunkum, this is complete rubbish, I don't know where he's getting this from, and I really respect him, but this is not true. Suddenly the French Interior Minister kind of did an about turn and said, no, I didn't say that. But then in a further clarification, with one press agency, I can't remember which one, he said that actually I didn't say that it was the bombers themselves who were arrested, but I did say that the network that they were associated with was under surveillance, and several members of that network were being monitored, and they were arrested, and they were released not because they weren't considered a threat, but because they were considered a threat, and we wanted to monitor them and find out what was going on and just keep a tab on them. This was a really fundamentally different story to what the British intelligence officials have been telling us. And it seems clear that, again, the holes in the official story are really clear. So, yes, we do need an investigation. And it seems to me that the evidence, the prima facie case that the government had some kind of dubious relation to the attacks, they failed to act, either through sheer absolute criminal negligence or through something far worse is almost a foregone conclusion. The role of an inquiry is to establish how far this went.
Desire